Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 138. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us here this Wednesday, Steelers Nation. Glad you guys are joining us as Pittsburgh is in the middle of their second week of OTAs. And just quick aside, thank you for all the mattress advice. I've gotten all the information on mattresses I can possibly have. And sorry, my alarm's going off there. We're starting a little early today, and so I've set all the alarms, which I've slept through to start, and so I'm scrambling here. But no, thank you for all the mattress advice. It is truly appreciated, and I'll let you know if I end up picking something. But Dave, thanks for being here a little bit early for me today. How you doing?
I'm doing well, right here in the middle of the week. So, not a lot to talk about here with only one day of OTAs this week under our belt here. But I think it'll get a little bit busier as the week goes on here. We've got a few things to keep us busy today.
Yeah, players speaking on Tuesday, nothing earth-shattering. We'll start with a comment that was probably pretty obvious to most, but whenever it first came out a couple weeks ago, it gained a lot of traction locally and certainly nationally as well when Jalen Warren on Cam Hayward's podcast made a comment that Danny Smith wanted to use Justin Fields on kick returns. And no one knew, was that a serious comment? Was that a jokey comment? No one kind of knew the context and the reality, although it sounded obviously pretty absurd on its face. And Justin Fields asked about that yesterday, according to Brian Batka of the Post-Gazette, and laughed it off and said, yeah, that's not going to happen. That was really just a comment of Danny Smith talking about that everyone has to be ready to play special teams, such an important component. If you're not going to be a starter, you better be somebody that can play for Danny Smith. And so pretty obvious overall, obviously, but Justin Fields, a no-go on kick returns.
Yeah, not surprising overall. I do want, look, you can, in your mind, come up with interesting type scenarios in which, unique situations. Obviously, they're going to have two guys back there, new kickoff rules and all like that. No, I don't think Justin Fields will be one of those guys. But if you got into a unique situation in a game and needed a big return and teams were kicking away from your primary guy and Cordell Patterson, might you entertain just once maybe throwing Fields back there, to try some sort of gadget type thing where you might, I don't know, have Justin Fields throw it if the ball goes to him, or you see what I'm saying?
You're all about the passes on kickoffs. I like it.
Look, I think you're going to see it. I think you're going to see a few teams pull some of that stuff out. I don't think obviously it's going to be a lot like that. But look, when you talk about Justin Fields and some things that he's good at, it's moving with the football, and especially in situations like a running play. So once again, nobody thinks Justin Fields is going to be out there for every kickoff, but in my head, I can imagine maybe at least once you run into a scenario where, man, we need a big play and we need, to break out, a gadget type, play that we have on the kickoff here. And maybe he would be part of that.
I guess you'd have to rep it in advance. Would you work on it in practice?
You wouldn't just Coke bottle top it out there in the dirt on the sideline. Yeah, it's just something that I think that maybe you rep once or twice, during the off season here, and make sure everybody knows what the responsibilities are on it, and obviously revisit it during a meeting session or two during the season, to make sure everybody's on the same page and all like that. But look, that guy's explosive. There's no two ways around it. And if you can kind of create something to have as it kind of in your back pocket, should you need it, that's all I'm saying here. just have something drawn up in case that you want to throw a wrinkle out there and maybe surprise a team in a certain situation. They obviously signed Cordell Patterson to be the kickoff guy, and no, you don't want your backup quarterback out there taking unnecessary hits on kickoff return team. But within that, Justin Fields is an electric player, and if you can draw a wrinkle up like that, I'm all for it. And I think maybe at least one time we will see him back there.
Yeah, I just think more broadly, one of the most interesting things to look at this preseason is how each team approaches kick returns, because it won't be uniform. I think each coach will have their own ideas, own wrinkles. We mentioned this into more detail during the Monday live stream, and thanks to everyone who joined that live stream on Memorial Day. Is some people might use offensive linemen up front. Some might use running backs as kick returners and wide receivers, and they might try to pull and they might try to do a handoff. I mean, you're just going to see different things in trial and error as teams try to figure out what works best under these new and radical rule changes. So, again, on Fields, I'd be surprised even if that happened, as that just in case of emergency or specialty situation.
Not even a one-off, just once during the season. You don't think it'll happen?
Because that would mean they'd have to rep it, and I just don't think they'd have interest in. I mean, I can't discount it, but it doesn't sound like even Fields was kind of laughing off the notion of it. But that was obviously more towards the actually be a kick returner. I do wonder who will be back there with Patterson. Right. Patterson will be one of those two guys. I'm not sure who the other will be.
Look, it's going to be one of those things with this new rule anyway, just to see what teams around the league do with it, right? We've seen the UFL and all, implement this and all, and I think this is going to be a learning process for special teams coordinators in the NFL as this goes on throughout the year. I think you're going to see a lot of copying around the league. Hey, that worked. Let's let's look at something like that. And because it does somewhat simulate closer to a running game, the personnel used on it might be bigger personnel. Heck, you might draw up some things that look very much like running games or run plays with some pulls or something like that. But I'm sure everything I said will be taken out of context here. I'm not suggesting that you throw Justin Fields back there for 20 kickoffs, but I do think that if you got it in the right situation with his skill set, with the ability, with maybe the possibility of being able actually to throw the football on a trick play, why wouldn't you have just one thing drawn up in your arsenal that you could pull it out if need be? That's all I'm saying here.
Sure, I understand. I do wonder what wrinkles Danny Smith will have. I think he'll have something unique that he'll try out preseason for sure, and maybe regular season too. What that is, I don't know, but I think there'll be some sort of trickeration that he's going to try to use at some point in the season.
Here's the other thing as well too. Teams know that you've got Cordell Patterson back there, and if you have to have two guys back there, the other guy better be some sort of a threat to keep them from constantly kicking away from Cordell Patterson. Because I tell you right now, if I'm the special teams coordinator of that other team, I'm not kicking the ball to Cordell Patterson.
Absolutely. Yeah. The concern with Patterson and the signing, it's a good signing. It was smart coming hours after the NFL officially made that kickoff change. But what incentive do teams have to kick it anywhere near Patterson when you have to put two guys back there? I don't care who the second guy is. It can be Calvin Austin, it can be Quez Watkins. You have Patterson, who is arguably the greatest kick returner in NFL history. Whoever else you put back there, I'm kicking it to that guy. You can tell me whoever it is, and I'm kicking it to him over Patterson. And so it may be tough in some sense for Patterson to get opportunities. Will teams just decide we'll eat the touchback and put the ball with the 25 or 30, if we go with the rule changes, instead of letting him have a chance to return it? That may be their calculation, and that may limit the number of touches Patterson gets in the return game.
Yeah, right. And that reemphasizes my point here that, look, I mean, you better have somebody else back there that, at least can give you a threat, because look, the skills, big special teams plays can make differences in games for sure. especially, we expect a few more big plays in special teams as a result of this rule. But once again, if Cordell Patterson's back there and anybody else is back there, I'm kicking it to that anybody else.
For sure. Let's talk about also one piece of news, not just Steelers related, but just NFL related, that came out early Tuesday morning. Right now, just a proposal, no guarantee it's going to happen or when it could happen. It'd be next year at the earliest, but the NFLPA is finalizing a proposal that would pretty radically change, speaking of radical changes to kickoffs, but changes to the offseason schedule. What it essentially would do is the current OTAs that take place in May to early to mid-June would go away, and it would get tacked on to basically the start of training camp as a longer ramp-up period. So basically, you have a month-long OTA session starting around late June, early July, and then go right into training camp. There'd be nothing happening around this time of year besides probably a rookie minicamp after the draft. And so the NFL PA seems to be pushing for that. There's been mixed reaction. The players, I assume, are behind it from a majority standpoint, but veterans, I know Shelby Harris spoke out against it, did not like the idea. I think some coaches don't like the idea. It messes with vacation plans and just the rhythm of the offseason that they're accustomed to. So out of our control, obviously. Again, this would not be implemented until next year at the earliest, if it is at all. But that is their proposal, to have a long pre-training camp ramp-up period, get rid of the current portion of OTAs, or really just shift it towards basically late June, early July.
Now, would that ramp up? Would the trade-off of OTAs from where they are right now to it becoming part of a ramp-up period take it from being voluntary to mandatory?
It's a good question.
Did you get a sense of that?
Not sure. I mean, if it's considered training camp, then that would imply mandatory as part of that ramp up. I mean, the current quote unquote ramp up portion of the camp, which is what the first 4 days you can't be in pads, that is mandatory. Obviously, it's training camp. So a fair question to ask. I don't have an answer.
The other thing too, I mean, obviously this is in the CBA, so this would take an off-season agreement of some sort, I guess sort of like a bylaw suggestion, and then vote and change or something during the off-season to get this implemented. And those things are usually, I mean, you just don't see a lot of bylaws or whatnot changed. Things in, competition committee. Not a lot of things pass every offseason is what I get at here. And I'm not sure if this will pass or not. I mean, I got to read a little bit more about what exactly they're asking the players to do. I mean, if you're asking the players to go from voluntary to mandatory, that's one can of worms to think about. The other thing is I imagine there would be pushback for some coaches, and hey man, you're getting into our vacation time, there. And then, really for that matter as well too, the players really like probably having that run of, I don't know, what is it, 6 weeks or whatnot, from OTAs to training camp off. So I don't know how that would impact that. All of this, at some point, what all this is probably more trending toward is the 18-game season as part of the new CBA. Do you think we'll see an 18-game season before the new CBA time?
Some of the reporting was indicating that. I know Goodell made comments saying that they weren't making a hard push for it, but I think they're going to try to do it before 2030. I mean, they're going to do it. We all accept they're going to move to 18 games at some point. It's just a question of when. I think that will occur before 2030. I don't know when that'll be, but I think they're going to make a push. The league and the owners will before the CBA comes due.
Okay. All right. Well, yeah, we'll see about all that. I know that's the talk now, but talk and getting it passed is two different things.
Sure. And then just from a why would they propose this standpoint, I guess the idea is it doesn't create an interruption where you have OTAs right now. And then, as you said, this 6-week long break that kind of you fall off a little bit. You lose the routine. You lose the structure of, being with your team and going through practice, and you kind of have to restart that once you get into training camp. There's some rust you have to shake off. I guess this idea would be you have just a straight flow. You have a true off season where there's really nothing going on straight into the start of the season. But yeah, I mean, is it going to happen during around 4th of July time? It seems like a time where players would not want to have some obligations, around that weekend. So I don't know, but that's the proposal. It appears, at least they're finalizing it, and where it goes from there, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, and once again, I would imagine that'd be something they'd have to vote on at it'd have to be a bylaw proposed change. And the NFLPA would have to obviously sign off on it, right? So we're not just talking about just owners or whatnot or teams proposing this. The NFLPA would have to sign off on this as well.
Sure. I mean, it seems like they have enough votes to get to this point to finalize the proposal. There has been, again, pushback from some players, but if they're finalizing this idea, then I assume they have enough bodies on their side. It's just a question of, will the owners and will the NFL agree? And that seems to be a very open question.
All right, come get me when something happens on that then.
Will do. All right, Dave. So another notable comment that made the rounds, and again, some offseason fodder, doesn't mean a whole lot right now, but Joey Porter Jr. in an interview with The Athletic said he's the best cornerback in football, despite starting, 8 games in his career, being a second-year guy. He thinks he is number one. Like his father, certainly not lacking for confidence.
Yeah, I was asked by Dave Weekly. I did that weekly interview with Dave Weekly on his radio show, and we were laughing. You could tell he's the son of Joey Porter, right?
Yes.
Already there. Look, I don't have any issue with that. You speak it into existence or what have you. Have a lot of confidence in yourself. If you want to beat a man, you got to beat the man, right? Ric Flair.
It's a wrestling, yeah.
Ric Flair used to say, I'm full of kind of wrestling thoughts this morning. I stayed up late last night and watched that Iron Claw about the Von Erich, about the Von Erich family. That movie's running on, HBO right now anyway. I watched that last night. Big Von Erich fan I was growing up. But anyway, yeah, look, I mean, Joey last year did a lot of unique things. Didn't become a starter until about halfway through the season, but he did play a lot of snaps before that. Once he did start hitting the field, he was asked to travel around with a lot of receivers around the league. That was obviously good to see, something that we really haven't seen a lot of from Steelers cornerbacks in recent years. Yeah, Joe Hayden did it a little bit, but not a lot. You really, go back to Ike Taylor, I think, right? The kind of the last time we saw that kind of stuff happen. Is Joey Porter Jr. the best cornerback in the league right now? No. Is Joey Porter making strides and hopefully becoming that player? Yes, I think he is. Is 2024 a big season for Joey Porter Jr. and showing everybody that he can be, if not the best corner in the NFL, one of the league's best cornerbacks? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't have a problem with the kid having confidence in himself that way.
Yeah, not at all. That's the mentality every good cornerback
I don't think
needs.
he's number one right now, but
no.
Props to him for thinking he is.
But all that matters is he's number one on the Steelers team, and they need him to be a number one corner this year, because if not Porter, their options seem pretty limited. And again, you got a bunch of 5-star matchups they're going to be a part of when you talk about cornerback versus wide receiver play, starting with Drake London week 1, which is probably not a 5-star matchup, more maybe 4-star matchup, but still a good tone setter for the beginning of the season. But Porter you got to have that mentality as a corner. You got to believe that you're the best, that no one's going to knock you off, and you got to have that confidence in yourself. Because listen, you're going to get beat sometimes, and you can't get too down on yourself. You got to have that short-term memory. So I like the approach overall. Porter is not the best corner in football, but he is the best corner on the Steelers team. And he's got to be that type of caliber of player in 2024.
Look, they need a big season from him. They need more pass defenses from him. They need more takeaways, interceptions. Obviously, need him to be a little bit better tackler and player against the run. He's supposedly added a few pounds, I think, and you want to see that second year jump from him, and I think he's capable of making it. And I do think he's has the ability to become one of the better cornerbacks in the league.
I agree. I'm expecting big things from Joey Porter Jr., and he clearly is himself. All right, let's switch now to the offensive line. Of man, typically a few words, but Isaac Seumalo spoke to the media yesterday and shed some insight into the center competition between rookie Zach Frazier and veteran Nate Herbig, and that battle going on. Not entirely sure who's running first team, second team right now in terms of the pecking order, but it probably doesn't mean a whole lot here in the spring. But Seumalo praising Frazier, saying, quote, he's still a rookie that's coming along. Obviously, he's coming along quickly because of how talented he is. And Seumalo spoke about looking forward to watching those two compete throughout the summer.
Yeah, they can frame this however they want, but I think we all know which way this thing is trending toward. I will be super shocked if Zach Frazier is not your week one center for the Steelers. I think they're just, doing the whole veteran pecking order probably thing at first here, just making sure everybody learns everything and make sure they know what they're doing along the way and following the guy ahead of you in the line that's a been there, done that kind of guy. So I'm it's fun to talk about who's playing where right now. And obviously, I think, you expressed some concerns in the show the other day about, man, and even wrote a post about it is, are the Steelers essentially handling their offensive line correct with, moving guys around and all like that. This thing will play out, especially when you talk about Zach Frazier. And once again, I think once we get to week one, that's going to be your starting center there, and Nate Herbig will be your backup.
I agree, but we'll let the battle play out, and I want to get ice in training camp, and it still has to be earned, not given. Zach Frazier, which it won't be, but I think Frazier will take it and earn that job. Had a kind of a funny answer Frazier did when asked about what are you focusing on right now, first 2 weeks of practices. He said, snapping the ball. That's just just going basics, and obviously snapping an issue last year. No concerns there with Frazier, but I think his point was being fundamental. Talked about snapping the ball, learning cadences, his technique, his assignment, just the building blocks. And so it's the right place to start.
Yeah. Here's the thing. You got your top two draft picks tied up in offensive linemen here, right?
Right.
There are going to be some irate people if those guys aren't on the field come week one.
Sure. But the belief is at least one of them, and potentially maybe even more probable than not, that both Fautanu and Frazier will be starting come week one.
I think they will be. I'll be upset if they're not.
Understood. Well, also one small piece of Steelers news, but we are nothing if not thorough around here. The Pittsburgh Steelers have officially waived wide receiver Keelan Harris from the injured reserve list. He was waived injured last week. Cleared waivers, went on IR, and then released waived yesterday with an injury settlement. So don't know details on that. Obviously, just more procedural type move than anything else. But Keelan Harris now officially been waived with that injury settlement.
Yeah, this time of year, those are normally kind of the 3-week variety here. And yes, that money does go against the cap. But we'll find out the details here probably within the next week or so of what exactly that amount is. And the way they determine those, obviously, is it's a negotiation process with the agent and all. How many weeks during the regular season would this player miss with this injury? Potentially, and then he was on a split salary as well too. So if you both agree that it's a 3-week settlement, what you would do is take, I think he was on a split salary of $470,000. You would take that, divide it by 18 because there's 18 weeks in the season, and then times that number by the number of weeks that you're settling for, and then that's how you get the dollar amount for the injury settlement there. But standard course for this time of year when it comes to non-season ending type injuries here, and we'll have the total here in a couple of days, and it'll probably be around 29,000 or something like that. I think that's what the math works out to that. So not shouldn't be a huge total in the grand scheme of things, but I'll keep people posted on that.
I know this is such a minor point that probably won't be relevant with Harris, but did they change the rule in terms of how long you have to wait to return to your team if they wanted to sign you back? I know you have to wait the length of the injury settlement plus it used to be 6 weeks. Is it 3 weeks now? Did they change that?
Oh, I don't remember exactly.
I want to say they changed it.
Yeah, that sounds close to being right. In fact, Matthew probably would have been the one to write about that on the site, but there seems like there was some change on that. I don't remember specifically. We'll have to look that up.
Okay. But I know it happened once. Pittsburgh had was it Master Teague who had come back later in the year? I forget. This happened one case. It's so small and it almost certainly won't happen with Keelan Harris, but just made me think of that when I was writing the post up about the injury settlement and what some of the terms on that are. But anyway, that's me just going down rabbit holes. Let's talk about something else here. Connor Hayward he's had some interesting comments and, obviously guys getting acclimated to Arthur Smith's offense. And we're trying to get a feel for how things look and what's different and what the overall identity and vision of this offense will be. We have an idea based on what we've seen from Smith in Tennessee, in Atlanta, how this team is currently constructed, but haven't really seen it ourselves in the 2024 Steelers. Hayward, speaking with the media, had a really interesting comment and quote I want to get your thoughts on. He talked about what's changed here with the offense. He says, quote, "I feel like everybody's role has changed with the offense. A lot of tight ends, a lot of usage of the receivers, fullbacks, and quarterback mobility. It's a change for everybody, but it's a good change," end quote. I'm trying to figure out, I mean, obviously it sounds very tight end heavy, which is in vogue for what Smith's offense are. Fullbacks, I guess we're playing some fullback potentially. A lot of usage of the receivers. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but what's your interpretation of that quote?
Read it to me again. I'm not sure I read that one.
I feel like everybody's role has changed with the offense. A lot of tight ends, a lot of usage, other receivers, fullbacks, and quarterback mobility. It's a change for everybody, but it's a good change, end quote.
Yeah, I don't know. That's too loose. I think that's too loose to kind of read into it just yet, well, especially not seeing anything on the field.
He does mention fullback, and that's interesting there. And Hayward talked about he'll play whoever the team needs him to play. Is he playing at fullback? We didn't really get a straight answer. Hayward said he's still working with the tight ends in the individual drills. I don't know how much fullback, if any, he's being used, but seemed to float that. And there's also, of course, Jack Coletto, who is probably more of a true fullback for this team, and also Michael Pruitt that has played a bit of fullback, but is primarily a tight end. So, I was a little surprised they didn't sign that maybe quote unquote true fullback, but again, it may be where they want to use Hayward and some other combination of players in that more H-back type of role.
Hey, here's the thing. We expect a lot of heavy personnel groupings, whatever that looks like, right? 2, 3 tight ends, maybe some occasions with running back in, whoever wants to kind of assimilate a fullback position, and maybe ties with 2 running backs back there, what have you there. So we expect it to look different formationally just as a whole, just because of who they have personnel wise right now, and obviously the history of Arthur Smith and what he's done personnel wise.
Yeah, it'll be really funny to watch that week 1 game against Atlanta, because the offenses may have flipped, where Pittsburgh now becomes this tight end heavy team, and Atlanta under Zach Robinson may become an 11 personnel type of team, given how the Rams built things. It'll just kind of be funny to see those offenses flip, with Pittsburgh being an 11 personnel team for many years, maybe prior to the season. But one of the things I'll certainly watch for in camp is just, personnel wise, how heavy are the groupings. And I think you hit the nail on the head, Dave. You're going to see a ton of 12, 13 personnel, and you can be creative with that. I think you mentioned on the Monday show, you don't have to be always tight with your 12 and 13 personnel. You can split guys out. You can go empty. I mean, you can, be versatile with how it's not just about the personnel groupings, but your formations and your alignments, and being able to layer those things really makes you an effective and varied offense.
I would agree with that. So, and it's one of the several things looking forward to this season when it comes to this offense. They need to be varied personnel wise, and they need to play more towards their strengths personnel wise as well too.
Agreed. All right, moving on here, some more player comments. Keanu Benton, flipping to the defensive side of the football, talked about things he wants to work on. I'm always interested in hearing, especially from young guys, what they want to improve as they go from year 1 to year 2, especially that second year jump we hear about so much, which is where Benton is sitting at right now. He said a couple things, but primarily he wants to finish plays. Only had 1 sack last season, had a chance to probably get a couple more, and also talked about his run defense. I don't have the exact quote and comment on run defense up, but I think just being able to work off of blocks, make more of an impact against the run, while also improving his conditioning, because he should be playing more snaps over the course of the season, as opposed to last year where, a little like Porter, he was eased in and then had a fuller time role the back half of the year.
Weren't there a couple kind of missed sacks by him, or I'm trying to remember how many situations there were where I thought, man, he just missed one. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. I think you're right. I'd have to go back and maybe I'll do a compilation of that. He had a ton of pressures. I mean, that club over was so effective for him last season, one-on-one against centers, and it gave him a lot of A-gap pass to the quarterback. And despite all that pressure, his sack rate to be at 1 was lower than it should have been.
You know, much like Joey Porter Jr., obviously, and man, run through the list. Nick Herbig, your second year guys this year. You know, you really expecting the step forward, and I thought Keanu Benton had a very good rookie season, and like Porter, I think he can build off of that and become, you know, a more premier player this upcoming season.
Not to get hyper fixated on one particular number, but what would be a good sack goal for Keanu Benton in year 2? If you had to put a realistic but impressive number for him to work to achieve this season, what would it be?
5.
Okay. I like 5. That seems like a solid number to pick.
I think he can achieve that. Like to see, you know, obviously his tackles for loss come up a little bit as well too, but, you know, he's got that rookie season out from underneath him. This is his first off season, obviously not having to deal with pre-draft stuff and all that kind of stuff that goes along with that. So he can focus on his training and getting better. And I believe he will. I think we saw a lot of positive things from him out of his rookie season. And I expect that to be better.
I was just pulling up his college stats. His career high single season in sacks at Wisconsin was 4.5. And so I think 5 is a really good number to have the most sacks you've ever had in college or the NFL. Can he do it? Do you think 5 is? I think
it's very doable. I think it's very doable. Certainly, yes.
Okay. Yeah, I think it is too. I remember going last year. Again, that club over was just so stupid good and so fluid, but he's got to work on power. There's got to be a bull rush component, because I think towards the end of the year, you saw veterans especially understand his go-to move. And it was his go-to move for sure was that club over, and it began to sit on it and take that move away. There's got to be a power component. If he can have a bull and that move, he can work his way down the middle or work the edges on the outside shoulder, then he's going to be phenomenal as a pass rusher. Until he's able to get that second move, he may be a bit more limited because those centers are going to sit on that all day long.
Hey, look, if you keep that front healthy and they play like, you know, we know that they can play in 2024, there's going to be just a couple of cleanup opportunities for Benton to make.
Sure.
You know, so, you know, let's say he has 1.5 cleanup sacks. I mean, that's only 3.5 more sacks that he needs, you know, kind of on his own effort to be able to hit that 5 numbers. So I really think that is achievable on his end. And yeah, I mean, once again, you go over that list of second year players, and, you know, obviously Porter and you start at top with Broderick Jones and Joey Porter Jr. and on down through Keanu Benton and Darnell Washington. We had to talk about him the other day on the live stream about kind of what the over under might be on reception for him. You would obviously expect him to exceed his receiving statistical numbers last year. And then, you know, you go on down into Herbig as well too. Expect Herbig to get a increase in snaps off the edge there, and, you know, put up a little bit, you know, more numbers, more production than he had his rookie season. So that was a good class, I think, top to bottom overall last season. And there's a lot of reason to be hopeful that guys like Benton and obviously Porter and Herbig take that next jump.
I'm probably going to get a Dave Bryan yes answer to this question, and I know it's going to be intentionally broad and you're going to want more than one of these guys to step up, but who do you think has to step up and make the biggest and best second-year jump of that rookie class of Broderick Jones, of Keanu Benton, Porter, Washington, Herbig, that kind of core? Who is the most important player to make a second-year jump and really take that next step in 2024?
Yeah, that's an easy yes there. But I mean, I think specifically, and if things kind of play out the way I think we want them to in our head, especially when it comes to the offensive line and who plays, who's on first and what's on second, and who's at left and what's at right, and that kind of thing there, the old Abbott Costello routine. But Broderick Jones, I think they really look. It wasn't awful, obviously his rookie season, but there were some things to improve on for him. And he obviously going to come out of shoot as a starter week 1, and I think most everybody listening to this podcast is hoping that's at left tackle. So we know what it means to this offense to be, or we think we know what it will mean to this offense to be able to run the football at will in 2024 and pass protect adequately when that's called for. So, if Joey Porter played at the same level that he played once he became a starter last season, is that acceptable? I would say yes. Herbig's probably going to be, backup, obviously going to have an increase in snaps. But I mean, if he gave the same effort and did the same things in the amount of snaps that he played last year, I think you could live with that. Being as how Darnell Washington's, more of a backup. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to rank them for you, so I don't just give you a yes. I mean, the obvious answer is you want to see all these guys grow, right?
Of course.
But if you're going to ask me point blank, who specifically is imperative that they make that second-year jump, I think I just kind of outlined why I think that probably needs to be Broderick Jones.
And that's where my head was at, too, just to make the case for Porter, although I think it's pretty obvious. And while he may not have to make a giant jump because he and this rookie class in general played well last year, but you need that guy to really be your true number one lockdown corner from week 1, which will be the new test for him because he came in, playing dime packages the first month, and his first start did not come until week 8. And so he's got to be able to do this from a 17-game season perspective as a starter and full-time every down player. And so, I know I'd mentioned a couple shows ago that between Porter and Pickens, who's more valuable? I would say Pickens. You can maybe mask some of the issues that would come with losing Porter, but man, you still want him to be the number one guy because you are facing some top tier receivers. I forgot to mention the other day, CeeDee Lamb against week 5. Talk about a 5-star matchup. CeeDee Lamb against Joey Porter Jr. That's going to be all that's talked about throughout that week, that kind of matchup and those guys against each other. And Porter has to be able to respond in those moments because you're facing some really talented receivers. A.J. Brown, who toasted Pittsburgh's corners the last time they met back in 2022. That'll be discussed again. You need a guy like Porter to combat those number one elite level receivers.
Yeah, that goes back to what we said earlier in the show there. I mean, if he wants to prove he's one of the better, top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL, he's going to get every opportunity to show that during the 2024 season. They'll move him around a lot. He'll be asked to cover those top receivers on the other team, and it's up to him to come out on top there.
And then with Benton, it's a little like Porter because Benton wasn't playing a ton early in his career last season. Only had, I think, 1 start over the first 7 or 8 games. And then I think when Mon Adams went down, Benton became the full-time starter. The stats on Benton, 43% of the snaps, a little under 500 total defensive reps last year. Obviously, he won't be a true every down guy as a defensive lineman, the nose tackle in this 3-4. He'll rotate in the sub, but your starting nickel packages will still be Ogunjobi and Cam Hayward. But that's a guy that will be playing more snaps and playing them more immediately than last year. I think it's why he talked about his conditioning. He'll have to be able to get through an entire season and get through an entire game playing more snaps in games. So that'll be one thing he has to work on and just adjust to as well.
I would agree. And, the whole balance thing, I thought he did a pretty good job as the season went on last year, talking about Benton on maintaining that balance. Remember, that was one of the things kind of coming out of Wisconsin there is staying on your feet. And I thought he did that largely better in the second half of the season.
If you could pick one area for Darnell Washington to grow in the most, what would it be? I'm curious of your answer on that.
Just a better blocker, especially when attached to the end of the line of scrimmage. He needs to become more of that guy that we thought he would be coming out of Georgia. Just a more dominant man. That guy can cut. Because where he would lose is quickness into some of those gaps. It seemed like, especially kind of inside slants and stuff like that. So if I could be granted a wish of one area where I'd like to see his game improve, it would just be as a run blocker.
Yeah, I'm with you. I thought about it as a receiver, and obviously you want to see an improvement there and get him more involved and look a little more athletic and natural and fluid like he did. I think in college at the combine, didn't see that as much at the NFL level. I think also just first snap, being quick off the ball. That was kind of slow, especially as a blocker last year, a little tick slow in terms of firing and getting out of his stance. I think he's got to work on that because if you're late off the ball, your size doesn't matter, your physicality doesn't matter. You're going to get beat at this level in the NFL.
Look, he's never going to be that guy down the field threat, in my opinion. When it comes to receiver, the effective ways that Georgia used him was in the red zone because of his size and all like that. Even they didn't do that enough. He had to compete with, who was it, Brock Bowers over there. If Brock Bowers was not at that program, Washington probably have 6-7 more red zone touchdowns coming out of Georgia there. But obviously because of his size that he has and his leaping ability, that's one area where you could really take advantage of his skill set down in the low red zone area. And the other way we saw really Georgia kind of utilize him was kind of on those leak out type situations, misdirection type plays. That's where some of his bigger plays were. That's where I think the one against Oregon where he had the hurdle type play and all like that. He's never going to be that 9 completed air yard average type guy. He's probably going to be more in that 3 to 5 range, quite honestly there. So once again, you go back to saying where would you like to see this guy improve more at? I think he needs to just become work on becoming more of a premier run blocker.
Yeah, if he can do that, you have this dominant run blocking tight end with an improved offensive line for a run oriented offense. Man, you're gonna be tough to stop up front if you got 6 of those guys that can block, not just 5.
I agree. Let's play a little game here.
Oh, are you rolling in on your tricycle like the guy from Saw? That feels like what you're doing right now.
Yeah. Why? Let's play. Why did they do that, or why are they doing that?
Okay.
I can't help but keep going back in my mind to think about before the draft. And even though it was a foregone conclusion that the contract of Alex Highsmith was likely to be restructured at some point during the offseason, more than likely right before the start of the season, quite honestly, and because of the amount of cap space that they had, at the time of the restructure, the timing of the restructure, right there at the start of the draft, the amount of money that they freed or had free right after that. I can't help but keep going back to that. After having all this time to look back on it, why, that's part one. Why do you think they did that?
Well, I think we discussed it at the time. It was, we don't know if they're going to make a move or be able to pull off a trade for a receiver, but they might, and they might try. And so you want to have that space available just on the ready, where as opposed to if you don't make that move in advance and you agree to a deal, then you have to deal with just working out the extension or the restructure, excuse me, and free up that space. So just be proactive in let's assume that we can get a deal done. And if we can't, well, we're going to make the move happen anyway at some point this off season. So it's not bringing any harm to us. So I think it was just a proactive move on the chance they could make some sort of big splash wide receiver trade.
How proactive ahead of that, though, do you think they were? Or do you think they said, you know what, we're going to have some upcoming talks here, possibly with some teams. We just want to be able to open ourselves up to anything and everything? Or were there, were there, what I'm getting at is, were there, how many preliminary talks do you think there were with other teams about a potential wide receiver ahead of that? Or was this just merely a move of, we want to be ready for everything?
I mean, I think it's probably a combination of both. I'm sure, I think the reporting bears this out. There were some talks with, obviously, Ayuk was speculated and reported about pretty heavily. And if he was going to get traded, it was going to be right ahead of or on night one, correct, Ayuk?
It'd been right there at the start, you would have thought.
Right. So that's why, Pittsburgh made that cap clearing, space saving move right before the draft on the chance they could get something done with Ayuk. Let's say the Niners cave and would have given up for a second round pick, hypothetically. Again, you have that space on the ready. You can make the deal happen right then and there. No additional things needed outside of working on the details of the deal with Ayuk and the extension that would, come with Ayuk. So again, I think it was just being proactive on the chance and to take advantage of the opportunity of if a deal came together. Obviously, it did not, but there's no harm done because you were going to restructure Highsmith anyway. You just ended up doing it earlier than maybe you had initially anticipated.
All right, another portion of the game here. Why won't this team just go ahead and fill up their 91-man roster?
It's a good question. They have, 2 spots open? I have a terrible take on this today. They're at, 89, but they have the exemption with Julius Wolshoff, the international exemption there. So I thought about this. I think part of it is, you don't have to make that move right now. You got 88 guys to go through practice. That's plenty. And I mean, I guess 87 because Cam's not there. But point is, you have a ton of guys. I think you just go through the spring and you see what positions look strong, what looks weak. Maybe somebody gets hurt, those kinds of things, and you adjust from there. So they're probably not in a big hurry, and there probably isn't a big compelling need to add somebody right now.
Okay. It just, and you know where I'm going with this, obviously. Just kind of keep wondering with June 1st coming up, and we came back across a report by Jeremy Fowler from, I think, the 18th, right?
Right, May 18th, he talked about this.
Talked about Courtland Sutton and what he thinks the asking price is on him at this point, which, to be honest with you, I'm not so sure that kind of adds up there. But read the quote from Fowler.
Yeah, this came on a SportsCenter appearance, like you said, about 10 days ago. He says, quote, "You've got Courtland Sutton, 2 years left on his deal, but he has been staying away from Denver during their offseason workouts, working out on his own in Florida. So he wants a bit of a raise here." Goes on to say he is due about $13.6 million in cash this year. He'd like to see that get up maybe in that 15, 16 million range. We'll see if they can find a sweet spot, end quote. So it feels like there's maybe multiple layers to why Sutton is not happy in Denver, just on the team's success or lack thereof, but also appears to be contractually as well.
I mean, if you're talking, where's my post on this real quick so I can look at the numbers that I compiled on top of everything that he had to say. I forget what I did with that post, but crap. Anyway, he's scheduled to earn what? 13 million in 2024. What'd you do with that post, Alex? I'm trying
it's sticky at the top. I'll send it.
Okay.
I'll DM it to you.
It's sticky. Okay, that's why I couldn't find it. I know it wasn't sticky yesterday there. He is scheduled to earn what? 13 $13 million in 2024. Actually, I think when you look at the roster bonuses and all, because of the not likely to be earned stuff, it works out to 13.6 million. He has the ability to earn the max of 14 million in 2024. No, wait. I got that wrong here. He's scheduled to make, because of the not likely to be earned stuff, 13.570 and some change million there, with just 2 million of that being fully guaranteed. The max he can earn if he plays in every game, because the per game roster bonuses, is 13.6 million in 2024. Now you have Fowler coming out and saying, he'd like to get that up to maybe 15 to 16 million in 2024. That's not a huge gap. I mean, right? And on top of it, I see how Fowler has this, at least how the quote came out of his mouth, 15 to 16 million range this year. But if you look at the new money average that Sutton currently has right now, it's 15 million. So, I mean, is he effectively kind of wanting? I wonder if he truly wants 15 or 16 million this year, or does he want that changed on next year? Because he's under contract next year as well too. Does he want that money as well too? And basically, what is he wanting as part of the new money average to come out of this? It's hard to imagine him wanting. Well, all I want is 15 to 16 million this year. You would think that he would want additional money in the final year of 2025 as well, and that's probably the balking point when it comes to Denver right now. Now, look, he obviously isn't at OTAs. Mandatory minicamp is coming up for them, for the Broncos, June 11th to June 13th. If Courtland Sutton does not attend that, he would stand to lose a whopping almost 102,000 in fines. I think he would just probably shrug that off at that point. I'm not convinced that we'll see him at their mandatory minicamps. But long story short here, and it goes back to dead money and the date on the calendar. If they were to deal him, it would probably happen within this next week after June 1st hits here. But I'm not convinced it will happen. Sean Payton kind of shrugged it off when asked about Courtland Sutton the other day, about him not being there. Payton said there isn't any concern. Here's why. I know Courtland well. He's a tremendous worker. He has a tremendous makeup. He's the leader of our team. That will sort itself out. So, but I think someone asked me the other day on the live stream there, if I was to bet your house, who I think the wide receiver potentially this team would go after at this point. I think I'd bet your house that it would be him, because look, it's easy to draw the lines back to the Steelers. Sutton played the last 2 seasons with Russell Wilson. Zach Azani was the wide receivers coach in Denver from 2018 to 2022. It's very easy to draw the lines when it comes to that. We continually see these wide receivers around the league get a little bit more money. Heck, who was it in Houston that got the new deal yesterday?
Nico Collins.
Yeah, Nico Collins. So Courtland Sutton at this point, I think, is just barely inside the top 25 of wide receivers in new money average. He's probably getting madder by the moment seeing these deals get done. I think the Giants posted a photo on their website that Darius Slayton has showed up to their practices over there. I think DK Metcalf, we already know, has been attending the Seahawks OTAs. So, I mean, you get where I'm going here. You start whittling this thing down. Is it Courtland Sutton or bust at this point?
Again, I think he's the front runner, if you have to use that term. I don't know if it's going to happen, when it's going to happen, but I've maintained and will continue to maintain he makes the most amount of sense for all the reasons you outlined. But yeah, I think the question is he looking for Like you had mentioned with AB getting that raise in that 1 year before, is he looking for that right now, or is he looking for 15, 16 million on a new extension? I'm not entirely sure what Fowler's language indicates there, but there maybe have to be some sort of additional payment paid to Sutton for whoever is going to roster him in 2024.
Yeah, look, it's hard to read in between the lines, obviously, on some of these reports, especially one that goes back 11 days, I think, at this point here. I will say this. I mean, obviously, the Steelers, if they were to trade for him, would have to accommodate the initial cap charge, which would be a little bit more than $13 million. That's not a problem at all. That is very easy to do. From there, they would obviously try to do something to get his cap charge down. That's easy to do, whether it be pull money from a future year. I mean, from 2025 and then turn it into a signing bonus. That way he gets, the additional cash that way. Once again, that's easy to get around at this point here. Not an issue. They could just decide to just rip that deal up altogether, do something like a 3-year deal, that kind of thing. So that, to me, that's the least of the problems, as long as a guy like Courtland Sutton isn't asking, for 17, 18, 19, 20 million dollar new money average, which, sure, you before you trade for a guy like that, you're obviously going to have those conversations anyway.
Right. In terms of when this could play out, I imagine Denver is in no rush to deal a guy like Courtland Sutton. They probably want to go through their spring workouts. They got some young receivers, Troy Franklin, their 4th-round pick. They signed a new free agent and Josh Reynolds. Want to see how these guys fit in the offense and then just kind of see what their comfort level is with these new look receivers before making any decision on Sutton. So still may be a little bit on that if any deal were to take place. But yeah, in terms of Pittsburgh having open roster spots, I mean, I think they've done similar stuff before. They probably will add, they could add a second punter, right? They're not going to have just one punter right now in Cameron Johnston and work his leg and wear him out in the summer. I wouldn't imagine. So there's probably some depth consideration still to be had there.
Yeah, I just find it amusing all throughout this process. What the things that I just covered there. You move the cap space around before the draft. After the draft, now you're still not running around with a full roster at this point. It's all just a bit curious to me, I guess. That's why I went down that. I mean, look, we're low on things to kind of talk about in the middle of week 2 of OTAs as it is. So we'll get our answer, I think, soon enough. Once again, with the Broncos mandatory mini camp coming up in the middle of June, and obviously the June 1st designation about to pass here, where it makes it easier for teams to trade away. Will there be a trade in the National Football League by the end of business day, June? What day is June the 2nd on? Is
that a weekend? I think it might probably have to go in the next week for that. So 2nd is a Sunday.
Yeah, so it will probably looking more at the 3rd there. So let's use June the 3rd. Will there be a pretty significant trade, or what most would consider a significant trade in the NFL by after June 1st, but by the end of business day, June the 3rd?
I'll say no. I'm not sure who that would be. You may see some cuts, maybe official, but I don't know about trades.
Okay. All right.
Who are some potential trade candidates outside of the names we've talked about? Maybe even things that aren't necessarily Pittsburgh's need.
Yeah, I haven't really gone much beyond wide receiver, to be honest with you. So right. I couldn't even draw you up a plausible list. I don't think at any other position, just because I haven't gone down those rabbit holes, because they're not significant to the Steelers, really.
Sure. I know I had mentioned this on Twitter yesterday, and I know I talked about it with you briefly, I think on a podcast or live stream, but let's assume that George Pickens has a really good year, career year, 70 catches, 1,200 yards, 6-7 touchdowns. He'll obviously be eligible for an extension next offseason going into 2025. What would be his asking price, do you think? And let's assume here that the receivers who are expected to get paid, Ayuk, Jefferson, Both of the Bengals receivers are skipping voluntary OTAs. Jamar Chase, he'll get a new deal done with Cincinnati, I'm sure, before week 1. T. Higgins will get paid by somebody, probably not Cincinnati. He's on the tag right now, but he'll get paid next March. Are we talking a $30 million being the starting point for Pickens next year if all goes well in 24?
I mean, you already have, 3 guys, I think, at the 30 million marker above, in A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Tyreek Hill. You're probably going to have a couple of more guys join them by the end of by the time week 1 rolls around.
At least 3, Chase, Ayuk, and Jefferson at the least should join them.
I will say this about Pickens. If Pickens has the kind of season most think that he can potentially have, you're obviously talking top 10 money for him. And top 10 money, where is that line going to be? 25 million?
I mean, Nico Collins just got, 24 per year? I mean, I think you have to come in above that, knowing the cap's going to go up next year, and you're always trying to beat what past guys got.
Let's use 25 million as a low side as we watch the market continue to rise. And how many guys, but before even let's assume that we all agree that Pickens deserves a new deal next offseason, yada yada. How many deals get done by the end of the 2024 season? And in other words, before even Pickens gets his deal next year, how many deals get done?
Sure. Pickens will be one of them. I think in next off season. I don't know what other receivers are due next year. Again, a lot of them probably will be extended out this year in terms of the names I just mentioned, Ayuk, etc. Juwan Jennings won't get that kind of money, but I'm just trying to think about potential receivers in free agency next year. Point is, though, again, all for Pickens having a great season. That is the goal. That is what everybody obviously wants to help out this offense and this team. But if that happens, it will come with a heavy asking price at the least on the other side.
I still wonder if he winds up getting it from the Steelers, though. I got to admit, I do wonder. I think he really needs to make that next jump, which I think he's capable of. But not only that, as a leader and his attitude and all like that, I think needs to come around as well too. And hopefully that will, with him having, entering his third year in the NFL. I wrote that post, what was it? I think, was it last off season? I think it was that right ahead of Christmas about be careful about asking for a George Pickens jersey during Christmas, something along those lines. Nothing against him, altogether, but you're talking about making him, easily probably one of the top 10 wide receiver, easily a top 10 highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And depending on the timing of when that gets done, he would become the highest paid player on the Steelers potentially, as well. Do you think that he's the type of guy that the Steelers are willing to make the highest paid player on their team?
That's a good question. And it would obviously come on the back end of what would have to be a really good season for Pickens. You have to kind of put yourself in those shoes and assume he played awesome and made a ton of impact plays and helped this offense succeed and thrive. And so it's going to justify that more than it may currently feel in present moment. CeeDee Lamb, I didn't realize too, he's a free agent after this year. He's going to get paid probably by Dallas, but if not by Dallas, by somebody. And he could become a top 2 paid receiver in football. So that market is heating up red hot right now. And I think if Pickens has a big year, again, will Pittsburgh give it to him is a separate question, but he's going to want and ask for. And if we're talking about guys skipping OTAs next year, it could be George Pickens because he may be looking for 30 million plus per year.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, anything above 28 million would make him the highest paid player on the Steelers. I mean, I'm not going to dance around it. And I haven't danced around it so far. Somebody asked the other day on the live stream, do I now like George Pickens? Whenever I ever said that I haven't liked George Pickens.
Yeah, I guess maybe the interpretation was some of the concern about, will he be here long term, and are you comfortable attaching yourself long term to George Pickens?
Well, I mean, that's not the way the question was raised.
No,
People listen to this show and they and read the site and they take the least little thing negative that you say is you hate the player, right?
Well, you didn't say you hate the player. You said you didn't love the player, I guess was the question.
Well, I mean, okay. I love the actual player and what he puts out there on the field. I don't like the things that we've seen with his attitude.
Sure.
I mean, I believe I'm probably not alone in that statement either with people listening to this show either. Look, he's I've said right from the get-go, he's very, very talented dude. I mean, go back to when he was drafted and the things I wrote about and the tape breakdowns and all like that. I mean, supreme body control. I did say that I thought that he needs to develop as a route runner, which was that true coming out of Georgia?
Sure, it was and still is.
Right, and he did. He has gotten better in that area, but he still needs to take that next step. I believe in that. That's the kind of thing that will ensure that he gets, a $30 million deal next offseason is him becoming a more all around route runner. I also at the start of OTAs, I put out there on Twitter, I said, man, I really look forward to watching George Pickens play with a couple of different quarterbacks here, not named Kenny Pickett, Mitch Trubisky, or Mason Rudolph. I think that's going to be, chicken soup for the soul, if you will, when it comes to his game here. But I'm still not going to dance around. Back to the original question here. I think a lot has got to happen for him to 1 year plus. In other words, by the start of the 2025 season, for him to become a, $28 million per year or more player on the Steelers. And, unless something happens, I mean, who else on this roster right now could potentially exceed him as the highest paid player other than TJ Watt, maybe getting a new deal himself?
Yeah, it's a good question. I hadn't thought about it much. That's obviously a lot of steps down the road. Porter, a long-term deal with him 2 years from now.
But I'm talking by next summer.
Well, Russell Wilson, what does a quarterback get paid? I mean, that's obviously the quarterback discussion becomes, central topic if Wilson has a really good year, or if they want to do something with even Justin Fields if something happens with him positively.
And that's going to be a great problem to have to talk about. If we're talking about either one of those guys exceeding even $28 million a year, which obviously would be peanuts for the quarterback position, but what a great problem to have if we're entertaining the fact that those guys had seasons that weren't that even that kind of money there. But outside of the quarterback position and outside of TJ Watt signing a new deal early next offseason for which will obviously would be even more than $28 million average that he has right now. I mean, honestly, Alex, we're talking about we're already looking ahead to potentially George Pickens becoming the highest paid player on the Steelers roster, sometime next offseason there. And do we think the Steelers would do that? And right now, I don't think they'll do that.
Yeah, that's my point. It's the open question based on how this season goes. It's why it's such a big year for Pickens, both as a player and just kind of as a teammate and how he handles himself in that locker room to not have the negative stories that popped up so often last year. But my point is, if he has a really good year, he's going to want that kind of money, and we'll see how Pittsburgh proceeds from there. And this is a team that, based on how things are currently set, will need and will spend a lot of cash next year because they've not spent as much as we've expected this offseason thus far.
True. Now, did anything that I say warrant me being a George Pickens hater?
No.
Okay. All right.
So, all right. But that just, it's a forward thought down the road. A lot of things have to happen. It has to be a really good year. If he has an average year, he's not going to command that kind of money, clearly. But just a thought that I had watching this receiver market unfold and where it's going to be at by the time week one rolls around. Anything else here, Dave? Any other comments from players or anything else you wanted to discuss today? No,
I think we got about an hour in on this thing now. So good jumping off point, especially with what little has happened since the Monday show, I think.
Yeah. Any reader emails to close out today's show?
Yeah, let's Let's get one here from Chris Bailey. Writes in, great work, Depot, to cover the team in such detail and with objectivity, no speculative reporting. He says, now it's the offseason. I've got a couple of questions that I appreciate your help with. We know the Steelers traded a conditional 2025 sixth-round pick to the Bears for Justin Fields that could turn into a we're going to have to break out the slide rule here. That could turn into a 2025 fourth rounder if Fields plays 51% or more of the 2024 offensive snaps. My question is who owns those picks between the date of the trade and the date the condition is either met or not met? Example, are both picks off limits for either team to trade until the 2024 season is over, and we all know whether the Steelers are giving a fourth or sixth rounder to the Bears. Look, if those picks are conditionally, I forget how those are even listed.
I don't think you're able to trade that fourth round pick next year because it's tied to the condition. I believe I vaguely remember that coming up at some point, and you can't give that pick away to anybody until it's decided which pick it is.
Right, because you could get in a situation where theoretically you've doled them all out, one too many, and yeah, you can't meet the demand for what you have out there. So I mean that makes logical sense there. I don't remember exactly how that was listed on the NFL side, if it was just conditional or what. Do you remember?
I think it just said sixth round pick conditional is my memory of how that pick was listed on the transaction sheet.
Let me see if I can find that real quick.
I don't know if the sheet lists out all the conditions in terms of.
I know it doesn't do that, but I'm just trying to, let's see if I can pull that up. Go ahead and kill some time here.
Yeah, somebody had asked me too a little while back, does special team snaps count in that 51% when that first comment and story about Fields doing kick returns came out? And I said I wasn't really sure. Unlikely it would actually end up being relevant. The line you'd have to walk where he plays 49% of the offensive snaps and a couple of kick returns that pushes you over. But obviously with the Fields, basically confirming that that's not going to happen becomes a moot point. But there's been some interesting discussions about what 51% actually means. And all that would have been worked out in specific language in terms of when the deal was officially agreed upon by Pittsburgh and Chicago.
All right, here's what it says on the official sheet from the NFL when it comes to the Justin Fields trade. Chicago trades Justin Fields. Pittsburgh trades selection choice round 6, 2025 from Houston, conditional.
That's from the Kendrick Green trade, right?
That would be from the Kendrick Green trade. So that 6th-round pick that they got from Houston is on the line with conditional attached to it. And obviously they don't list out what the conditions are, but it is tied to snaps. But I would assume that if that higher pick is tied to conditions, then you can't do anything with it.
Right. You can't trade that Houston pick, obviously, and you can't trade that 4th-round pick either until the conditions are officially known after the season.
All right. Second part here is the new kickoff rule states that the receiving team must have 2 players back to receive the kickoff. Are the Steelers and possibly many other teams around the league making a mistake by only having 1 top kickoff returner? He says, surely kicking teams will target the weaker of the 2 return men every single time, thus negating the point of having a top returner on the other half of the field. I would have thought it would have been better to either go the whole hog and get 2 top kickoff returners or save money, roster space, and have 2 okay returners rather than going for one of each. He wants our thoughts on that. No, it's one of the funny how these things coincide with what we talked about earlier in the show. It's just going to be interesting to watch how all this plays out. And yeah, you can imagine that depending on who your other guy back there, if Cordell Patterson's one of them, ain't no way in hell I'm going to do my best to have my kicker to kick away from that guy. But on top of it here, you're talking about the money and all like that. They didn't invest heavily in Cordell Patterson overall on an average yearly value standpoint. They didn't. It and I believe in my heart of hearts that they will look at everybody and anybody that they can that could potentially be compliment back there to him as a second return man during the rest of the offseason.
Sure, point taken, and obviously we discussed that previously and on today's show earlier. But how do you find two great kick returners? Who are the great kick returners in today's NFL? There aren't many of them because it's barely been a play the last several seasons. And what even means what constitutes a great kick returner right now? And it's sort of unknown of who do you want a receiver back there? Do you want a quick guy? Do you want a big guy? Do you want a speedster? I mean, you were kind of figuring some of this stuff out. So it's a valid point overall. Pittsburgh, I'm sure, is aware of this potential hiccup as well. And so do they have wrinkles in terms of can they get Patterson to run over to the other side? Can they align Patterson on the side where the kicker tends to kick towards based on his strength and based on the coverage strengths? I mean, you'd be able to make some adjustments there. And if you had two great kick returners back there, then teams may just boot the ball in the end zone for touchbacks all day long. So, I mean, there's always workarounds there. It's going to be this cat and mouse game. We'll just kind of see how things play out again. And this is going to be such a learning process and trial and error for all of us, including coaches and teams.
All right, Brett Now writes in about several times in the last few years, the Steelers have drafted safeties and tried to convert them into slot corners. Could that be the team's long-term plan for Ryan Watts? He says, not recommending this, but we have seen that a lot in the past, most recently with Trey Norwood. The team likes physical guys that can tackle. His lack of long speed will not be as much of an issue in the slot, and having a 6'3" guy with long arms could help solve their problem matching up with tight ends. Is it plausible? Here's the thing that first and foremost, let's kind of pump the brakes just overall on Ryan Watts. We're talking about what, a 6th-round draft pick here, right?
Yeah, their last selection.
I mean, and we already kind of see, we're kind of wondering positionally how the offseason would roll with him. We've learned in that first week of getting some safety, some safety work there, and now we're fast forwarding into long-term plan of trying to convert him into a slot. A week and a half in OTAs. If they get Ryan Watts to make the roster and contribute on special teams alone as either a 2-team or a core player, how fantastic would that be, Alex?
That's a win. That's a great starting point for him. Does he have the skill set to play in the slot? Hasn't done it before. Yeah, he might be too big to play in the slot. I think there was some fluidity in some of the things I talked about, but also some tightness in covering in-breaking routes and slants. And if you're in the slot, you're seeing a ton of those concepts, and you're defending the entire, route tree, and you can't really leverage a guy out of it. So it doesn't kind of play to his size and potential press ability. So I'd be surprised. There has been some consideration. Could he be a guy that matches up on tight ends and sub packages in terms of we're talking ceiling, not out of the gate type stuff? That would seem more realistic than maybe a truer slot type of role for Ryan Watts. I think that's pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. What was the narrative coming out about the lack of underclassmen this year in the draft and what it essentially meant for like the 6th and 7th rounders this year?
Yeah, the concern was the class wasn't as deep this year. There was a record low number of underclassmen. I think 54 was an older class overall, and the consensus was that depth really just across the board in this year's draft class was not particularly strong because of the lack of underclassmen that wouldn't push down the seniors as they typically do.
In other words, a lot of these 6th or 7th rounders this year might have gone undrafted, right?
In a normal quote unquote class, yeah, that's probably a fair assessment.
Do you think? I mean, it's an impossible question, but I mean, do you think Ryan Watts would have been drafted had, yada yada? I think he would have. From
how I interpret it is, do I put a draftable grade on him? I think he had a draftable grade in terms of even as a special teamer, what he potentially could be. But with that kind of size profile, I know the production wasn't really there. The metrics weren't kind to him, but there's some tools that you want to explore. So to me, he was a draftable player.
I've learned over the years that, once you get past fourth round guys, man, whatever you get, as far as any kind of production and them sticking and logging actual games, is just a huge plus. I mean, occasionally you're going to find, diamonds. Look at Vince Williams several years ago. Who's a most recent example? I mean, even Loudermilk hasn't obviously played a lot, but he's given you a little something in there. It hasn't been great. And, for him, if Loudermilk were to make the 53-man roster again this year, I mean, is that for where he was drafted and what you did trading up to get, has that kind of exceeded expectations, if you will?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I'll just kind of let it play out. I mean, the longer he sticks, obviously, the better you feel about it. But, what's his role? What's his play? Let me ask you an offshoot question of that I think was semi-asked to me a couple weeks ago. Was Daniel McCullers a good pick? Did Pittsburgh get good value out of using a 6th-round selection on Daniel McCullers?
Oh, boy, you're going to get me in trouble with Michael Reynolds if he, our very own Michael Reynolds, who writes the weekly spin during the season, a very talented, longtime contributor of the site there. I think he was a big Daniel McCullers fan, wasn't he?
Yeah, probably still is. I mean, McCullers was here for 6 years. He played in 73 games. You don't see many 6th-round picks doing that, but he was just a pure backup that seemed to hang on for longer than I expected.
Probably longer than he should, to be honest with you. Look, what was your question?
Was he a good pick? Did Pittsburgh get good value out of taking McCullers in the 6th round?
I mean, I think you have to answer that question yes, right? I mean, begrudgingly. I mean, you can get into the semantics of was it right or wrong to keep him around all that time. But, I mean, for what they got out of him, for where he was drafted, I mean, I think you got to say, it was worth it.
Yeah, he was rostered, but he played 600 snaps over 6 years. I mean, the number of snaps, 100 snaps a year. For a 6th-round pick, you'd still sit there and say that's more than a lot of 6th-round picks, which is probably fair. But what's the impact of those snaps as well? So I don't just one of those open debate type of things. He was here for a long time, and so you could argue that, but you could also argue what exactly did he contribute in a positive way to make this team better, and it's harder to find that answer.
Did he block a kick? How many did he block a field goal or two?
It sounds right. I'm not. Yeah.
Or was that preseason? I have that.
I'd have to look it up. I don't see it on PFR. It feels right. At some point he did, but I can't remember top of my head.
Yeah, I can't. I'm trying to. I know he did. I'm trying to remember if he did it during the preseason or not. I guess.
No, he did it. Looks like in the November game. So I think he did it in the regular season. It appears in 2018.
If he did that, then he's worth his weight, right?
Yeah, that is the line. That's probably it's honestly not a terrible point to make.
But I mean, going back to the original question here. I mean, here we are in. I understand everybody wants to carve out roles for every draft pick and think 3 or 4 years down the line there, but I think the most interesting thing when it comes to Watts is can he make the roster? Because of maybe some of that position flexibility that he's going to try to show this offseason? And if so, man, can he at the very least get himself on the field as either a 2-team or a core special teamer and then kind of see where things go from there? Because as a 6th-round draft pick, if you were to get that out of him and he stay on the 53-man roster throughout his rookie season and he end up being that core guy and he put 3, 4, 5 special teams tackles on the books and I mean, I think a lot would have to happen for him to log defensive snaps as a rookie, right?
Probably, yeah. It would not be my expectation. And if it comes to that, it likely means some injuries occurred along the way.
I mean, come re-ask me this question, Brett, a year from now, after we have his rookie season to look at and decipher,
Sure. Makes sense.
All right, Alex, I know you got some chores to do today, and we're thin on topics today. It's pretty amazing. We got about almost an hour and a half out of this anyway there. So in the meantime, we will be back on Friday recapping what all has transpired in week 2 of OTAs for the Steelers. You can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button upper right. Hit the donut button. I'm hungry. Donuts.
There you go. Homer Simpson for you.
Yeah, hit the I almost said it again. Hit the donate button upper right navigation bar. Also, it'd be like an ad-free version of the site. SteelersDepot.com. And hit the ad-free button there. If you got any mattress tips for Alex, send them along to theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. Also, if you have any experience building apps or whatnot, we're looking to get that accomplished this offseason as well, too. So until Friday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.